Sometimes to be insulted is to be gloriously, transcendently seen. And my favorite joke ever made at my expense happened a few years ago at my best friend's wedding, which I officiated. So obviously I gave a little speech, and afterwards at the reception, her father got up to thank me for officiating before joking that I'd have a bright future as a televangelist scamming people out of their money. I loved it because that's absolutely my sense of humor, and he kind of has a point. Like, I aim to provide commentary that is broadly applicable to, like, roughly 90% of people, regardless of their politics, faith, or maybe lack of anything thereof. But the vocabulary I use and the frames through which I see the world that said vocabulary brings to life are hopelessly tied up with my own faith. And that, friends, has been a meandering journey, which I find really complicated to talk about. But a few people have noted that my outlooks lean heavily on phrases and concepts like the shared brokenness of our condition, or what I see as a universal call to service, or just our duty to provide accompaniment to each other, regardless of our differences, on this difficult road of life. And they've asked me about that and where it comes from, so I figure, difficulty aside, it's only honest to talk a little bit about my faith. Now, partially I find faith difficult to talk about because it's highly personal and private, and partially I worry about how off-putting my faith might be for people who otherwise could be interested in what I have to say. Because I'm a Catholic, and God knows if organized religion has aspired to do good, but along the way has committed countless acts of harm. My church in particular is kind of the poster child for institutionalized brokenness, and the mere mention of it can be validly triggering for people who've experienced firsthand that famous saying, "There's no hate quite like Christian love." At the same time, I'm not sure many of the online Catholics want to hear from me because I very intentionally practice my faith in a parish which is most famous for its open-armed embrace of the LGBTQ community, along with its generally more progressive practice of Christian faith that some of the haters online love to disparage as like the quote woke politics church. Seriously, you should see some of our Google reviews or the Reddit threads, but a lot of Catholics out there really love to hate on those of us who find the fullness of our faith best expressed in love, inclusion, and service. And although I actually find a lot of value being part of a heterogeneous institution like a church in which people from across the world and time and countless viewpoints can find some common ground, I don't want to get dragged into the muck that online faith discourse can so often be. So really, I worry that there's nobody that's going to be happy, even as I try to walk this fine line to share part of the inspiration behind my outlook while not putting people off. And the best conversation I've ever heard that captures this challenge is the one between Ego Wodum and Caleb Heron on his So True podcast, where they discuss how she often introduces herself as Christian light, because as Caleb rephrases it, you're trying to say, I'm Christian, but I'm safe. Because for a lot of people, they don't feel safe with Christians, or many of the often valid assumptions that they then make about what any individual Christian might believe. At the same time, you don't want to deny your faith or see the label Christian to the people that are giving the whole thing a bad name. All I'm trying to say is that if my language sometimes feels heavy on the religious themes, that's because I spend a lot of time listening to Pope Francis, James Martin, Stephen Colbert, and it doesn't mean that I'm trying to influence anyone's individual faith or that I don't see the immense harm that this thing I love has caused. Luckily, I happen to be a proud American, which means I'm well practiced at membership in a thing that aims to do so much good and yet has a very dark side that it must always seek to name, confront, and overcome.